You're listening to SMUBE Campus Radio, Say What You Wanna Say. My name is Ruben, your host for this episode of A Cuppa With, an alumni-giving podcast series where we host special guest alumni for an informal coffee chat. These conversations will take us through their life journey, their careers, and what success means to them, as well as touch on diverse perspectives on creating meaningful impact through their work, projects, and lives. Today, we are honored to have Keeve Tan, who is currently the head of Futures, Foreign Exchange, and Contract for Difference at OCBC Securities. Now, unlike some of our past guests who were undergraduates of SMU, Keeve was part of the postgraduate MBA class of 2017. This is A Cuppa with Keeve Tan. Welcome, Keeve. It's great to have you here. Coming back to school, is there like a wave of nostalgia just coming back to you about your MBA days?
Yeah, definitely. As I parked my car and I walked up, all the memories came back. But while I say there's nostalgia and memories, I couldn't find my way to the library. There were so many exits. So it's been a while and I miss the place.
Do you mind just giving us a glimpse into your life as an MBA student? Now, what was that experience like?
Oh, it was totally fun. I think I thoroughly enjoyed myself. When my previous company sent me for this MBA, my primary goal really was to learn as much as I can and also to make as many friends as I could. And I think my time at the SMU MBA accomplished both goals. So I think the network that I've made during the course has continued. We meet up very often, and that's something that I always cherish.
Now, I understand you also left behind a physical legacy in SMU. Do you remember what you left behind?
The quote, if I remember correctly, was, "You're sitting on my chair. Live up to my legacy. Google it." So, while it might sound cheeky, in fact, I left 2 of such plaques. But really, it was to firstly cheer the student up, right, sitting on the chair. I hope he finds it amusing. But I do also hope that anyone who sees the plaque cherishes the opportunity to be sitting on a chair. Not everyone gets the opportunity to sit in the lecture hall or the seminar room of SMU to receive the education. I think that is important. And I think receiving an education should not just end there. It is really about creating your own legacy. And so that was my way of encouraging.
Is there someone that you looked up to which kind of caused you to come up with this motto to live your life by, in a sense?
I would say my dad. He's passed away when I was really, really young. But before he passed away, I think the commitment that he had for the family, the selflessness that he had, I think that is something that motivates me, inspires me to not just do it for my family, for my wife or for my daughter. I hope to do it for the society.
Thank you for opening up and taking us on that trip down memory lane. I'm sure many will be inspired by the experiences that you've shared. Now, if we could just follow that idea of memory lane and just go back to the first job that you had as a derivatives trader at Kuranda Trading Group. Now, it seems that you don't have a background in finance, not an extensive background at least, because based on what you were studying, it was engineering and science. So this is a very curious jump that you made from science and engineering all the way into the finance world. So what was the driving force behind this seemingly large jump?
So I did start off by studying engineering. So as my freshman year, I was in the engineering course. But I stayed in the hall of my university, and I got very, very interested in investing, because what do university students do, right? Study, invest, and I got very involved in investing. And so I thought I was the most brilliant investor in the world. I read investment books, and I say, hey, why am I doing engineering? I really need to get into business. So I actually approached the dean of the university and asked if I could switch. So the advice I got was stay in engineering. Otherwise, I would have wasted 1 year. And I was told that financial institutions, they love engineers. And so I completed my engineering degree, and I applied for my first trading firm. Or I applied for my first job, and I got the role.
Currently, after your MBA, you're now with OCBC Securities. Now, as the head of a 30-odd person team, could you take us through a day in your life in OCBC? What does this role entail? What's it all about?
I would say that it is a role that allows me to have impact, because for the 30-odd people under my care, the things that I do directly impacts them. The policies that I create for the department, the coaching, the mentoring that I go through with them, The culture that I try to create affects them and affects their families. And that's something that's really exciting for me. So on a day-to-day basis, it would be managing the business, ensuring that the different business heads managing the business well. I look after the P&L, so if there is a dip in the P&L, I will want to know why. A large part of my role is strategy, so I try to keep the business away from pitfalls and traps, and I always say this to my business heads, that a good business head should not be like a blind mouse going after the nearest cheese. In fact, to win the game in business, very often we have to give up the nearest cheese. Because if we are always going after the nearest cheese and the quickest wins, you're going to be blindsided and you're going to be lost and you're going to lose the race.
Right, and you just have this focus on the whole big picture, I can tell. Do you mind sharing with us what kind of culture do you try to develop with your team as well?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, I always encourage my team to never be afraid to fail. In fact, if we are not failing, or if they're not failing, they probably are not trying hard enough. I always tell them that failure is never final and failure is never fatal. They shouldn't be afraid to fail, and if they fail, they should just own up to it. When things go wrong, they would never hear me saying who failed or who did it, and they will more often hear me say where in the process went wrong, so that people do not point the fingers at each other, but rather they work together to find where the gap in the process is. So that is important to me. I think one thing that I think is quite special is that, in consulting, in banking, people say it's notoriously long hours. It doesn't happen in my department. Every year, I send out an email, and even on an ad hoc basis, I remind my team members they are not allowed to work overtime. So everyone needs to, if they're not on shift work, must leave the office by 6:30 p.m. And I'll explain to some of them who get very, very anxious about not finishing the work that the reason they're working is not for me. But really, I think most people are working for their families, and so then they should be spending time with their families. And I think, for the 30 over people that work with me, I think that's 30 over families that get to see their family members back for dinner, and I think it gives them the motivation, because when they're at work, they really work much harder. So this policy that I have greatly increased the productivity rather than reduce the productivity.
It's so hard to appreciate just being able to sit down with your family for a meal. I'm sure that they are all very happy to be able to do that. Now, are there certain aspects of your job that you really enjoy as well? Or beyond that, what motivates you in a day-to-day?
For me, like I mentioned, the policies that I have, if it allows them to have more time with their family, gives me great satisfaction. I would be concerned, if their next boss would allow the same culture to remain, and I hope they do.
Right, and I can see the investment in the people that you interact with, by your giving back, by the policies you've implemented, and also your successor in how you worry that there might be changes that are brought about. So maybe you can leave a plug for the successor as well. When they sit at your table, they see, this is my...
and Google it, right? Yeah.
Now, Keeve, do you mind sharing with us where you volunteered and what exactly you do at the places you volunteer at?
Out of work, I volunteer mainly at causes that have to do with children that I think are more exposed to a dysfunctional family. Now in my new bank, I've been here for about 2.5 years, and on my very first year, I've joined the volunteer program. So this is something that's very close to my heart. In terms of just giving the funds and time, what I do for SMU, I volunteer as a mentor. So I'm a mentor for the alumni office, and so the mentoring circle, the mentoring navigator. These are programs that I'm part of for I think 3 years now.
It's really inspiring to hear, because you're really about giving back to and investing in people, and we can really see that as well. In addition to giving your time outside, you've also contributed to the SMU Alumni Infinity Fund. And I'm not sure if you know this, but you're the first person, the first mover, if I may say, to back the whole idea or back the whole concept up. And for those who don't know what it does, the SMU Alumni Infinity Fund is a fund that provides financial assistance to financially challenged SMU students. Now, from your perspective, why is it so important to give back?
What prompted me to give last year and to start giving in a bigger way financially to the university, was really because of what happened last year. So it's the COVID situation, and I was very concerned in a COVID situation, would there be students that are not able to continue with their education? And I'm thinking, it cannot be, right? This is SMU. People always say SMU kids are very rich, right? And then when I got in touch with the SMU alumni-giving office, I realized that's not true. There are children struggling, COVID or not, and COVID's of course exacerbated the situation. And I thought the giving or the starting of giving last year was quite apt. In fact, I asked the SMU alumni giving office if I could just perpetually give every year. And with the impact that we're doing with this fund, I think it is something that's worth giving to, and that's why I've told the office that this is a fund that I'll give to every year.
By giving in this manner, the students who are financially challenged and will be able to benefit from this fund, they'll definitely make the most of it. So I'm sure they will also be thankful, for this opportunity that you've granted them. You've undoubtedly left your impact, on the people that you cross paths with. Is there any nuggets of wisdom you'd like to share with us?
I want to reach out to the listeners to understand that whatever we have, it is because of the good works of our predecessors, people who have given to the university, people who have sacrificed for the university for us to have this opportunity. And I think that has to be the basis that we give or we volunteer. The legacy that we leave behind is because we are able to rest on the shoulders of other giants before us. So I want to challenge everyone to respond to the university when it comes to whether it's leave your mark in a very, very small way. I think it's a couple of $100 to do it, and you can leave a really great comment to encourage, not just to give, but to encourage people who read it and create your own legacy, because someone else is hopefully going to rest on your shoulders.
I think it's really just very inspiring. Having heard this whole thought process of appreciating the legacy that came before you and being inspired to just do the same and for someone else to stand on your shoulders and continue to give back for the betterment of society, for the betterment of the people around them. To our listeners who are here, I hope that what we've shared and talked about today really inspires you to give back, just as Keeve has done, just as many others have done. With that, we've come to the end of today's episode. But thanks so much. It's been great. It's a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Ruben. Happy to be here.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of A Cuppa With. Once again, this is Ruben from SMU BE Campus Radio. Say what you want to say.